FedEx, one of the biggest names in shipping and delivery. In 40 years, it managed to dominate this very market and has now become a trusted name in the world of shipping. But how exactly did FedEx become the billion-dollar logistics company that it is today? Let's find out. Before we continue, make sure to give this a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications. Let's begin. Started by Fred Smith in 1971, Federal Express, or FedEx as we now know it, is definitely no overnight success. Within the 40 years of its inception, FedEx has now grown to have its own air cargo division, with a fleet of over 600 aircrafts, delivering goods to almost every corner of the world. It is currently worth a whopping 74 billion US dollars and generates an annual revenue that's worth over $40 billion, outshining all of its competitors in the freight forwarding industry. However, to understand how FedEx got to this point, we need to rewind the clocks. The story of FedEx starts in 1962, when a young Fred Smith was in college. During his time at Yale, Smith infamously got into an argument with one of his business professors, which led him to writing a paper for his economics class, defining the model upon which an efficient express delivery service could function. He proposed the idea of a company which would single-handedly be responsible for the local pickups and shipment of cargo all the way to its delivery, using its personal aircrafts, delivery vans, and posting stations, which was something that had never been thought of before. However, at the time, it was just that, an idea. And it was left as that. That was until Smith's graduation, when he started working on turning this model into a reality. Around 1971, using a $4 million inheritance, Smith founded his small company Federal Express. But his idea was so unique at the time that Smith had practically no trouble finding external investors for Federal Express. Not wanting to waste any time, he scored a $91 million investment from a team of venture capitalists that aided him in kickstarting his brand new enterprise. His business plan aimed at making the company work utilizing an integrated air-ground system, and quickly reached out to the Little Rock National Airport at Kansas in the company's early days. This is where the first hurdle was. He realized that the Little Rock National Airport was far from ideal to be a base of operations due to its location. And after just 2 years of minimal success, he had to revisit the drawing board, figuring out that location was key to the success of his new shipping company. In 1973, he moved his operations to the Memphis airport due to its centralized location. But despite the shift in location, the company was still losing a huge amount of money due to the costs of air travel and rising prices of fuel. The situation was bad, and Federal Express was right on the brink of bankruptcy. At this point, Smith had tried everything. He pitched his model to several investors in hopes of scoring some additional funding to keep Federal Express afloat, but all his efforts were rendered useless. Things were so bad that at this point, Federal Express found itself with only $5,000 left to its name. And this was to pay for fuel costs, air travel, as well as salaries for the employees of the company, amongst other things. Smith knew that it was not enough, and he had to do something quick. But what he did next was definitely not what any normal entrepreneur would do. Desperate times called for desperate measures, and desperate to save the company, Smith took the $5,000, flew to Las Vegas, and literally gambled with his luck at the blackjack table. He really had nothing else to lose. But this huge risk would soon pay dividends, as next morning, Federal Express found itself $32,000 richer, which was just the money it needed to cover fuel costs for a couple more weeks. This was the turning point in the company's history. As the company began to gain momentum benefiting from its new location, Smith was also hard at work and managed to raise funds worth $11 million to help his company recover from their previous losses. At the same time, in 1976, Federal Express generated its first ever profit, worth $3.6 million, by shipping 19,000 packages per day, which was a big win for Smith and his company, showing that perseverance was key to success. The good news did not just stop there. In 1977, the airline industry went through a deregulation, helping Federal Express purchase new aircrafts to increase the number of packages it could deliver. And this was evident as in that year, Federal Express made a profit of $8 million. Due to its reliability and ability to handle huge loads, Federal Express soon established itself as the way to go if you wanted reliable shipping. and picked up many huge clients, including IBM and even the US Air Force, which used the company to ship spare equipment and parts. This definitely was another step moving forward for the company. In 1978, Federal Express went public and generated even more capital for future ventures. From this initial public offering, a grand total of $258.5 million was raised, making a profit of $21.4 million, and bringing in enough money to fuel expansion, which is exactly what Smith did, expanding Federal Express's services to over 89 cities across the USA, competing with the company's biggest name in delivery, the U.S. Postal Service. As competition grew, Federal Express could not stay stagnant and allow its competitors to outshine them. And it was in the 1980s when Federal Express introduced overnight delivery, which simply meant that people could send and receive their parcels in the span of just 12 hours for a flat fee of $9.50, which proved to be a great deal. This was such an overwhelming success that Federal Express could not stop just there and got to work developing its international services to provide its services to its ever-growing pool of customers. For this to work, Smith started making acquisitions in the UK and UAE. And in 1985, Federal Express launched its services in Europe. To further expand international delivery, the company acquired Tiger International for $883 million, along with its heavy cargo airline, Flying Tiger Line. At the time, the company saw some drops in its net worth because of initial hiccups. But by the time the 1990s rolled around, Federal Express was operating in over 90 countries, with its next business day delivery service, generating international revenue unlike any other, tripling its profit. At this point, FedEx was an internationally recognized logistics chain that was trusted by millions of people all over the world. However, internally, the chain was going through a lot of trouble, trying to keep up with its international deliveries. And when the 1990s came by, Federal Express met with huge competition when the delivery service UPS started offering customers huge discounts on domestic and international deliveries. When Federal Express couldn't offer the same discounts that its competitors were handing out, its profits started to fall. It was up to Smith to save the company, and he did, by making the smart decision of letting go of a couple of Boeing aircrafts to give the company enough cash flow to help the company recover from its losses. Around 1994, Federal Express officially rebranded as FedEx. And this was a smart move, as ad campaigns started using the name FedEx as a term rather than a name. This was a brilliant move as consumers started using the term FedEx, which then provided free advertising for the company, further establishing its brand. In that same year, FedEx started offering its services in China through purchased air routes, which is basically buying space aboard other airlines for FedEx's cargo. And this proved worthwhile as the company yet again increased its profits. Smith was far from done with his great expansion plan, and the next move was the opening of the hub in Asia in Subic Bay International Airport in the Philippines. This helped the company offer even more efficient international services. Expansion was not the only thing. FedEx realized it had to diversify itself and acquired Kinko's printing services in 2004 for $2.4 billion to give even more competition to UPS, who also acquired a printing and binding service called Mailboxes. This was another smart move as FedEx continued to find ways to innovate and keep themselves on top. Currently, FedEx has over 300,000 employees and about 1,950 express stations all over the world. With a fleet of almost 700 planes, FedEx owns the largest number of air vehicles than any other freight company in history. FedEx is the largest operator of premium aircrafts like the Airbus A300, Airbus A310, ATR 42, Boeing 727, and so many more. The company made smart decisions and let go of all vehicles that were costing it millions in terms of fuel and exchanged them for more efficient options, helping FedEx provide its services all over the world without having to worry about fuel expenditure. Running in over 1,500 locations with fully equipped warehouses, offices, and service centers, FedEx is currently one of the greatest freight forwarding companies in the world, with subsidiaries like FedEx Express, TNT Express, FedEx Ground, and FedEx Freight. FedEx holds assets worth over $73 billion. The company's plans do not stop there, as they recently unveiled plans for improving efficiency through the use of dynamic route optimization technology. which will provide delivery drivers with real-time data on the most efficient routes to use when delivering their package. At the same time, FedEx also plans to be a pioneer in sensor-based technology, helping customers to track their parcels in real time, offering them an added sense of security. The company is also planning to add more retail stores to its inventory, which means that people will have more stations to drop off and receive packages from, which will again add to FedEx's profits. FedEx is a company that has gone through its fair share of ups and downs, but under Fred Smith's brilliant leadership, the company has persevered and innovated its way to massive success in almost all parts of the world. His ability to adapt FedEx's service with the needs of the time is what has helped Smith stay on top of his game, even decades after FedEx's first delivery. In the short span of 40 years, FedEx has practically dominated the delivery industry, and if things go the same way, it will continue to do so for many years to come. So, what do you think of FedEx's success story? Would you have risked the last of your money at a casino? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for future notifications.